Today, we'll be taking our first look at the brand new Tier 7 Premium American battleship USS Constellation. And I'll start right off the bat by telling you this ship is extremely peculiar. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You can just take one look at it, and it sort of looks like a Colorado class battleship or one of the standard American dreadnought type battleships, but it really isn't. In fact, it is a Lexington class battle cruiser. So this is what would happen if the Lexington in-game didn't become an overpowered plane generating factory. We would get a battle cruiser out of it. And this thing is actually pretty good. In spite of its girth, let's just say, it can achieve quite the high top speed if you don't impede the speed by using gyrating drill bits as one of your commander skills. This thing's got a top speed of 33 knots, so it's exceptionally fast, especially considering the way it looks. You would think it'd go like 25 or something, but no. It can reach a top speed of 33. It's also got a 15-second rudder shift and an 830-meter turning circle, so it's quite agile for a battleship. Or battle cruiser, I suppose. The concealment with my build, which I'll show you at the end of this video, is 12.4 kilometers by sea. That's quite excellent. The AA on this ship is, from what I can tell, okay. The long-range AA at least does an average DPS of 151, so probably it can take down some aircraft. And then we've got torpedoes on this thing. It has two triple launchers on either side of the ship. They've got fairly okay torpedo firing angles forward, but kiting angles on the torps are excellent. And, well, let's talk about the armor on this ship now, because you can see this enemy constellation broadside to us, and we hit him for like 30k. This thing does not have battleship armor. It's got 27mm bow and stern plating, meaning it can bounce 15-inch guns, but it will be overmatched by 16 and larger. And then the side armor is about 32 millimeters, so it can bounce things, but this thing is not very heavily armored at all. It can easily be melted down by HE spam or chunked to death by AP, as you're actually going to see in this little sequence. I think the key to playing this ship is going to be not pushing in too far at the start, especially if you're pushing into HE spammers. I didn't realize coming around this corner that this would constitute pushing in too far, so I'm forced to reverse, which is something that I really hate doing. But right now, we're sort of stuck right here. We're waiting for the Nelson next to us to come forward and start taking some of this HE spam, because he can heal it back, whereas I really can't. The Constellation does, of course, have heals, being a battleship, but they are just the regular standard battleship heals. There's nothing special about them. It does, I think I was talking about the torpedoes though, the two triple launchers on either side of the ship, these are like Benson torpedoes. They hit for a maximum of 16,633 damage. They have a range of 9.2 kilometers, and they go at, get ready for this because it's blisteringly fast, 55 knots. So they're the kind of torpedoes you just sort of throw out there and forget. And maybe if you get into a brawling situation, you can make use of them, although this thing isn't really suited to going into brawling situations, at least not right away, due to the lack of armor. The guns, though, as you've been able to see so far, are pretty good. There are 8 of them. They're 406 millimeters or 16-inch. They have a range of 18.1 kilometers on my build. They've got a fairly quick reload for guns of this size at the tier. It's 27 seconds. And I've got the turret traverse speed down to a blisteringly fast 25 seconds. The AP shells hit for a maximum of 12,400 damage. HE hits for 5,700 and has a 36% fire chance. The thing also does have secondaries, and I know that's probably a question on some people's mind, just because this is a battle cruiser, but you definitely don't want to spec into these secondaries. There are 20 of them, to be fair, and they're 127mm guns, but they only have a base range of 5 km, so you're really not going to extend them to any kind of useful range, and I don't see too much of a point. As for the hit points, it's got 63,300, although we've been reduced to about 14,000 because of all the HE spam and getting caught bow into it, sort of like the Nelson, although at least he can sort of heal past it. But generally speaking, you do not want to push into HE spam. You need to treat it as a threat on almost the same level as pushing into torpedoes when you're playing a battleship. I think this is a concept a lot of people don't really appreciate as much as they maybe should, but HE spam can kill you just as well as a torpedo can, and the easiest way to get killed by it is to push straight into it. So you want to avoid it. You want to move your battleship around, as I've said in the past. In any case, we're able to get into this capture circle now, and thanks to our concealment, we cannot be spotted unless we shoot. And if we put ourselves behind this little island here, hopefully we break line of sight on the Iowa. You can see, by the way, that these guns have the penetration to easily Citadel battleships across the other side of the map, and they're quite accurate too. They may not always be consistently pinpoint accurate, but these are really good in terms of accuracy for battleship guns. So what we have here is essentially a fairly agile, very lightly armored, very fast battle cruiser with accurate guns and torpedoes. And I think it's really, really interesting. I think it's been really fun to play, and I've enjoyed all the games that I've played in it. It also has radar, too. Only the second battleship in the game to get radar. I suppose we should talk about that. It is the, what is that? The Indianapolis radar. It's got a range of, I think, 9.9 kilometers. So not quite the 10-kilometer range you get on things like, oh, I don't know, the Des Moines or some of the American cruisers. It's got 9.9 kilometer range and a 30-second duration. So it is quite useful for, spotting enemy ships. I don't think we get to use it too much in this game. We deployed it a little bit earlier against a Tiger 59, but ultimately we were too far away from him to pick him up. But having radar on anything is, of course, quite powerful. Now, with the guns reloading in 27 seconds, you can really only get maybe one salvo, two, if you're lucky. I suppose you could go the alternate route than I've gone. I'm using Azerlay, New Jersey as the commander. You could also use William Sims if you wanted to, but if you use Willis Lee and build it for more of a brawler build using the brawler skill to get the reload down, I suspect you could probably get it to such a low second count that maybe you could get off two salvos for the duration of one radar. But in any case, the radar is much more for spotting things and not necessarily taking them out because you are a battleship. So if you get a destroyer, you might chunk it real good, but if it's at full health, you probably won't take it out. Still, quite useful, and only the second battleship in the game to get it behind the Missouri, which you of course have to pay steel for. This costs 17,500 doubloons, and whether or not you want to pay that is up to you. But I don't think you would be wasting those doubloons if you did pick up this ship. It's unique in terms of American battleships. I don't think we have any others that launch torpedoes. Plus, it's a battle cruiser, so it's lightly armored and highly maneuverable, which I think makes it pretty fun. And this game, by the way, it looked a little rough earlier on. It was pretty much even, but now we've overtaken the enemy team in terms of kills. They've only got one battleship left and two cruisers, and as far as we know, they're on the other side of the map here. So as we go through the middle, we're going to go the opposite way of our team. You can see we've got a battleship pushing in tandem with our two cruisers. What we don't want to do is go right next to them, because the whole idea of battleship gameplay is to separate your battleship from your friendly battleships and try to create crossfires. You can't do that if you're all pushing in the same direction. So I'm going to go the other way. But the Atlanta gets spotted. We don't actually have a line of sight on him, so we rely on the auto-aim to carry our shells over that island and bring them down right into the Atlanta's face, smashing him back to port. There's our first kill of the game as it nearly ends, but hey, what can you do? And then, here at the end, we've got a Roma and a Suzuya to deal with, so we're going to push in toward the Roma, and you'll get to see these torpedoes in action before this game ends at the very least. Roma's coming in at an angle, so we're going to aim into his superstructure and hope we deal a little bit of damage, and then check on his progress with the torpedoes. We actually managed to take out one of his guns there, which is nice. Now, it does look like he's heading straight toward that island, but according to the torpedo indicator, he might go around it to the right. keeping a close eye on that. But if we take a look at the mini-map, we can see he doesn't have the clearance to go around the right of the island. He's going to have to turn in and go left, but we want to know where he's at. So we activate the radar to get vision of him, and we can see we're correct. He is going left, so we're going to put the torpedoes right in his path, sort of predicting where they might hit him. And then we're going to push forward a little bit more, maybe try to get the torpedoes on the other side. But that's when we get spotted by the basically dead Suzuya, who I think is still playing this game. We aim at him, and of course it is only going to take one shell to send him back to port, and he does return fire, so he must have indeed been playing. Roma is the last ship left alive, and he's about to come around this corner and eat a face full of these rather slow American torpedoes. Of course, they are quite stealthy, being American. We do hit him twice, we get the Confederate medal, and, well, he's broadside to us, so that's the end of the Roma and the end of this game. We finish with 163,000 damage done, and I think 2,800 base XP, which I'd say is a pretty good result in the Constellation. I've had quite a few games in it that were pretty good, and this is just one of them. Okay, it's 2,700 base XP, but still, impressive, I would say. Now we can switch over and take a look at our commander build before we end here. We've got the Traverse mod in the first slot, Propulsion mod in the second, of course we have Concealment in the third, and then we have the Dispersion mod in the fourth. Then as for the commander, it is of course Azur Lane, New Jersey, with Kondo and Iachino as the inspiration, sort of my standard American battleship build, Flammable Cannoneer, Crisscross instead of gyrating drill bits because we don't want to cut down on the speed, Firefighter, this Don't You Just Love It that improves the AP damage, and then Fight Fire with Fire. So I think this is a pretty good ship. I would honestly recommend it. I've had a lot of fun with it. It may not be the best ship in the world, but it's interesting and it's fun. So sometimes I think that's all that counts. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.